Hi, everyone, and welcome to A New View. I'm Shuji, and I'm here with Kim, Lee, and Shira. We're four friends, speakers, and professionals from different cultures, backgrounds, and age groups coming together to offer healing and inspiration. I believe we've all heard the saying, what you resist persists. Part of the reason for that is that many of us are unwilling to be uncomfortable, unsettled, or inconvenienced. Today's episode is about leaning into that discomfort. We all have to do it in our lives, whether it's an uncomfortable conversation we need to have, an unfulfilling job we want to leave, a health issue that we're afraid to address, or avoiding certain emotions. So girls, who wants to share a time in your life when you needed to lean into some pretty major discomfort?
I'll go first, only because I just recently felt this leaving a job, and it was not easy at all. So yeah, I had to make a pretty big decision recently to leave a job that was just causing me so much stress and anxiety to a point where I was losing sleep, and it was just constantly on my mind, and I really feel it was having a negative impact on my overall health. As you guys know, I have psoriasis, and literally I was watching my skin get more inflamed by the day, every single day that I, was doing this job. Um, and it wasn't so much the job itself, because the job's great, know how to do it, love it. It was more of the circumstances in the job. And so basically, I've always been someone who has had difficulty feeling like negative emotion. I used to repress it as much as I could. And I think that's just sort of a way to protect myself from feeling any sort of hurt or pain. Very aware of this about myself, because most of the time I'm happy and I'm bubbly and I'm positive. And if I'm talking to someone who's negative, or even if I'm feeling something coming on that's negative, now that I'm older and I'm doing this work and I'm taking care of myself more, I can see it so easily. Like it's just like a blaring neon sign. Like, you won't go there. You're not letting yourself feel your negative emotions. Like, they don't feel good. And I don't want to feel them. It hurts. It physically hurts. So as I'm getting older and doing this work on myself, I'm really seeing the benefit to my health, my skin, my, mental clarity, on just like exploring those feelings, because I'm learning that, life being yin yang, the good comes with the bad, and bad doesn't mean bad. Bad is just like good doesn't mean good. Those are just words that we've created to define these emotions. So I'm just learning that, in exploring the negative emotions and allowing myself to feel them and ask powerful questions. I know we've talked about that before, but in asking powerful questions about, why do I feel this way? What is that about? Where is that coming from? And just digging a little deeper, it really helps me get to the root of what that root cause is for those emotions. And in asking those questions and doing that work and really sitting with myself, which another thing I don't like to do. The thinking, the feeling of negative emotions, the digging in and asking yourself these tough things, it's not comfortable. So in order to do it, you need to lean into the uncomfortability of it all. And sometimes that might not feel so good. So I'm learning that to dig in and feel the uncomfort and ask questions about that, it actually helps me naturally feel those things and come out of it more naturally, over like, say, force myself not to feel it. So with this job situation, I really sat and had to do that work and ask myself, okay, what is it exactly that's making me feel this anxiety? And through asking myself all these questions and allowing myself to feel it, I was able to really answer those questions and come to this decision of quitting, where sometimes that's not the right decision for you, and coming to the right decision isn't always easy and takes some time. And for me, that was one that really took time. I think I knew I wanted to quit for like 6 months. Actually, I knew I wanted to quit for probably closer to 8, because I knew I wanted to quit at the very beginning. I felt it wasn't right for me. I felt that I wasn't getting the support I needed. I was overwhelmed on a daily basis. I knew these things, but then there was all these emotions of like, well, no, all these stories, you have to stay. You need a job. We're in a pandemic. You need to make money, all these things. So just really letting myself feel it helped me make that decision that was right for me at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's really interesting when I think about the word lean. I think of like leaning, like you're not straight. It's almost like you're allowing yourself not to be perfect. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just like we have this in our society. We're just like, you just kind of need to be on top of things. And there's so much going on just between the social media and jobs and kids and this and pandemic, just so much. So it's like the leaning in, like I'm just sort of like embracing the visual of it. So it almost could be like taking a respite or like slowly moving away from center. And that's, like we said in the intro, it's not something that we're used to, but it's so necessary to give yourself another perspective about what's happening for you. Because we think we know things deeply. And I think what you said, Kim, about asking questions and just being curious and being uncomfortable, it's such a societal thing that we don't want to do. And I have found in not even like definitely the major things like leaving my marriage, leaving my husband of 32 years was pretty high on the scale of leaning into discomfort. But then there are smaller things like needing to have some conversations with people that are close to you and sometimes people that are not that close to you. Like I've had situations at work where something felt like it could be escalating. And I was like, I like to just nip things in the bud. So I actually had to reach out to, a couple of times to have a conversation that, because otherwise it festers. And so I think the more, like anything, the more you do it, the more you can get used to it, the more courageous you are, the more you're like, if you can lean into some of the smaller things, it helps you be better at it in other areas of your life. But it's always that first step of like, I don't know if I want to do this. And then you like catastrophize and all of that. So I think it's just baby steps about leaning into discomfort and just taking that visual of leaning. Like I kind of picture it like a slow lean as opposed to, I gotta do this right now. Although sometimes just ripping up the Band-Aid is a good thing too. So there's lots of ways to do it.
Well, if I could just add one thing there, when you don't lean into the uncomfortable emotion, if you ignore it or avoid it, whatever your, way of dealing with it is, that's probably not the healthiest for you. It will show up somewhere else in your life. It will show up in your body. It will show up in your relationships. It will show up in your work. It'll show up because your whole being needs to process it and digest it and feel it in order to release it so that you can move forward in a healthy, powerful, empowered way. So for me, it shows up in my skin. That's always where if I'm going through anything with friends, with work, with my husband, with family, if I choose to avoid it, which I did for many years, I mean, my skin is screaming at me sometimes. So I'm almost lucky in a sense because it's my biggest indicator when something's wrong and unbalanced or whatever. So it's like a blaring neon light where maybe with other people it might not be so obvious.
Yeah.
I think that you guys are giving great examples of like action to take when something doesn't feel right. I think for me, learning to lean into discomfort is actually removing the action. Because Ashira, you just mentioned, leaving your husband. Yeah, of course, like reaching that conclusion and then taking action for that is an important step in your life. But I think actually for me, the hardest part was the aftermath of leaving my husband and being like, wait a minute, this is what I wanted. So why am I still uncomfortable? Why am I still feeling all this guilt and all this sadness? And like, I'm in mourning for this marriage, but I wanted to end it. So why do I still feel this way? And for the first time in my life, I was just like, I'm sad.
Mhm.
I'm just sad. There's nothing I'm going to do about it. I'm not going to drink it away. I'm not going to socialize it away. I'm not going to work it away. I'm just going to be still and let myself be sad. And that was like the most radical thing I could have ever done for myself, because that's truly allowing yourself to move through something instead of like sweeping it under the rug and being like, everything's fine, 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 like smoke and mirrors, everything's fine. You know what I mean? And I feel like even though like we're in this work and we see a lot of like positive thinking manifests positive things in your life, it's like there comes a time or a point where that becomes a little bit toxic, to be honest. This like perpetual, nothing is ever wrong, nothing should ever be wrong, because you should be able to mentally override the feelings that you're having, where that's definitely not how it works. And I just remember like having a good period of like 4 or 5 months where like I was regularly crying myself to sleep, and it was okay. I didn't have to talk about it with anyone. I didn't have to do anything to try and avoid that. And when like with everything, there are phases in your life. And the thing that's so uncomfortable a lot of the times is when you're feeling sad, you're like, I'll never feel not sad again.
Yeah.
So you are like pushing it away. The resistance is like super overwhelming, but it's not true. We all know this. Like I let myself feel crappy for a few months, and then one day I just woke up and it was different. It just was. I didn't do anything different. I just got some time and some space. I cried it out, and it was like a new day had dawned. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
all right, cool. I'm
Oh my
having a
God.
good time again.
Love that, Juice. And I have to just say something right now, because you just like this thing is bubbling up for me right now. And it makes me think about children and how they are so like, I'm sad, I cry. I'm happy, I say yay, whatever. Like as parents, I think there's so much of the, oh, you're sad, let's go get ice cream, or here, let me make it better. Let me make it, as opposed to, so like that's where we get it from. And God bless us as parents. We just want to do, we don't want our children to suffer and struggle. But in doing that, and parents do it to different degrees. But I think if we, I've told you guys that one of my favorite, I guess, phrases that I came up with is just sit with the shit, and I had to teach myself that, because I am totally one of the people that you just referenced, Juji, with everything's fine. Let's sweep all of the crap under the rug. Oh my God, that pile's getting pretty high. Look at that. But children are our biggest teachers when it comes to that. It's just like, just feel it. And then it's sort of like, it rains, it sucks. We don't know how long it's going to look, but eventually the sun will come out, and then ebbs, and then flows, and then ebbs, and yeah, just allow it to happen.
It's actually kind of funny because I remember one day my nephew was having I think he was 3 at the time, and he was having this whole meltdown about like, he was sitting on the stairs wearing like his full winter gear, and he came in from outside and he was like hysterical about the fact that he was hot. And my sister was like, take off let me take your jacket off. And he's like, no. And he just wouldn't let her take his jacket off. And he was hysterical. And he just kept saying, I'm so hot. And she's like, I don't know what you want me to do. And anyway, in like 2 seconds, he's like laughing about something. And it's so amazing to watch how, they go from one emotion to the next, and they just really let themselves, freak out, have a meltdown, and then they're laughing 2 seconds later. But I just want to say, Juji, when you said like, I was sad and it's okay. I'm going to be 45 soon. And I feel like it wasn't until I got into this work only a few years ago where I was really, starting to really wanting to evolve more and learn what it really meant to love myself. And I remember hearing someone say that, like, when you don't, feel good, it's okay. Just let yourself feel it. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay. And everything in my brain was like, no, it's not. It's not okay. It doesn't feel good. It hurts. And but oh, the past few years I've been embracing that. And sometimes when I do feel something negative and it doesn't feel good, I have to remind myself. It's like literally a dialogue in my mind where I'm just like, Kim, it's okay. Like I have to just talk to myself and allow myself to feel it. Literally allow myself. It's almost like I've trained myself my whole life to not allow it. And now I'm going backwards and trying to decondition that. And it's not easy. I have to say, it's not easy.
No,
Definitely
it's not easy. It's so interesting. It's so interesting to hear you all speaking, because I can relate on all of the points that you made, and as far as, leaning into the discomforts that we are allowing ourselves to lean into. And there's such a balance that we need to also find of not staying there, not staying in a bad place, or not staying in a place of victimhood, and not allowing that to really go for too long, that you've kind of lost control and you're just always, in a bad place. So that's an important thing. But yeah, I agree also that with kids, how we see they can snap from one way to another, which is wild. But as we grow and allow ourselves to feel these feelings, because it is okay, because we may, I think, and Juju, you mentioned your marriage and how it was very, very sad after you made that move. For me, a lot of my discomfort before my divorce, actually, most of my discomfort was most of it was before the marriage. I was uncomfortable, pulling the plug. I was uncomfortable making that last, almost demand, like, we need to end this because of what people would think, because I'd be breaking up the family, because whatever. Although my reasons, I feel, were very justified. But regardless, for me, it was very empowering and very liberating afterwards. So I had that. And then I also had the mix of some discomfort as well, with all the newness and the unknown that was to come. I was moving. Life was gonna really be very, very different. So there's a discomfort in that as well. But I think at that point for me, it was a little bit more, I was embracing of it and I felt more empowered. But leading up to it for many years, it was uncomfortable to actually do it.
Yeah.
It's hard to live with that uncomfort, especially for a long period of time. I know we've all experienced this, you guys most likely with your marriages, and all of us with work situations and things like that. But to live with that uncomfort for a long period of time, like you said earlier, Shira, it just builds. It could build into resentment. It could build into inflammation in the body. But even, it affects your sleep. It affects your relationships on a daily. It affects just your everyday thinking. I love what
your health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
all of it.
Yeah. And it really, I don't think we even have any idea. I don't think we can fathom at all the effects of it. It's almost like when you think of stress, we all know that stress is like the #1 contributor to all disease. And that carrying around that uncomfort is stressful on the body in so many ways. I just don't think we really understand the full extent to that, how that affects us.
Right. But we're saying to lean into it. So.
Yeah, but right, exactly. So the leaning
for a little bit, lean into it a little bit, feel it, acknowledge it, and then get the hell out of it. That's really, it's got to be a plan. There's got to be a goal of like,
that's true. Yeah.
Judy, can I ask you, do you, well, first of all, in the leaning in of it though, is the only way to release it, right?
Yeah, I think also it's a way to acknowledge it. And once you acknowledge that this is what you're feeling, and you're like, all right, I'm sad, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm jealous, I'm depressed, whatever it is, I think you're all that much better for it. Then you're out of it and you can look back and say, I didn't run away from it. I didn't avoid it. Let yourself feel it. Like, I feel like the feeling it makes you know also what you don't want anymore, and helps you to get back into a more positive place. Of course, with the growth, there's growth in that, growth in that, and helps you to deal with similar situations maybe much more easily in the future.
Yeah, and what the word helplessness comes to mind, because when I do feel like, let's say, Juju, you were talking about feeling sad for a long time. Did you at any point, because sometimes I feel very helpless when I'm in that space. So did you at any point think you might be depressed and that you needed help?
Um, that's a great question. No, I think that the reason why you feel helpless is because it's not like when you're feeling sad, it's not like life sends you a schedule. Just so you know, you're going to be sad until May the 13th. And then after that, you're going to feel better. If life did send you that schedule, you would be okay with being sad. Oh, I'm only going to be sad for like 3 more weeks. Okay, great. Awesome. I can handle 3 more weeks. But because your mind doesn't know how long it's going to take, and we have no concept of time, like that's a human constructed thing, time, and the should and the could of like, I shouldn't feel bad for this long. Is it normal to feel sad for 4 months after you leave your husband, even though you've been thinking about it for a year? Like, shouldn't I be happier by now? Shouldn't this, shouldn't that, this, that, and the other thing? That, I think that's part of the helplessness of the discomfort itself. But one of the things that was coming up for me as we're all sharing these different incidents in our lives is that part of the reason why women feel so responsible for whether or not, all 3 of us, we were the ones that pulled the plug, right? And in Kim's situation, she's the one that left her job. And one of the things that happens a lot because of the way women are conditioned is that we feel a lot of guilt, because we feel the responsibility of like, I have to stay in this job, I have to stay in this marriage, I have to stay in this friendship. And the thing that really gave me that final push is like, I'm not doing anybody any favors by staying in something that makes me unhappy. You're not doing your job a favor by being there, because you're not showing up as your most fully functional, fully sparkly self. Mm-hmm. Same thing with friendships, same thing in relationships. Like, yes, there will be a period of hardship, but when you look at the overarching effect of you staying in something that isn't bringing you joy, you can see that it's not good for anyone, especially not you. And there's a certain martyrdom that goes with like, but I need to stick it out for the fill in the blank, and that in and of itself feels like power, but it isn't. It doesn't feel really who's powerful in this, like it doesn't feel that way to me. So yeah, I mean, there's so many things that your mind tells you about why the shoulda, coulda, woulda. I mean, those are dirty words in my book at this point, because, what other people think, they don't have to be in this marriage with me, like they don't have to come home to this every day. What are people going to think that I left my job in the middle of the pandemic? They're not the ones staying up late at night worrying about how am I going to get this work done? They're not the ones experiencing this inflammation in their body. And you think that people think about you more than they actually do.
Totally. Totally.
So true. So true. I love that, Juge. I'm also thinking like, so we're talking about all these things where we feel like we need to fix this, on the other side of the spectrum, we sometimes, I feel like, hold ourselves so small, like another example is I recently got a new job, and getting into this job, where it is an industry, I'm very familiar with, uncomfortable with, and I was afraid at first to ask for what I feel I'm worth. And prior to making an agreement, I got a proposal from these people that wanted to hire me because they saw what I had, the skill set that I had to bring to them and what I could possibly do for their company. And I remember looking at this proposal and knowing that when I would get it, I don't need to give an answer right away. Like always, hold on to it, take a look, absorb. And I was like, there's no way that I can accept this job for what they're offering me. And of course they were going to lowball it. So thank goodness for our female tribe. I consulted with some girlfriends and, I became empowered and motivated. And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to counter with a number that I feel is very fair. I actually took it a little notch up, but had it not been for that, inspiration and motivation and, this is something that was very uncomfortable for me to do initially. It's not, I think, and what I was asking for was uncomfortable for me to do. And they didn't like it at first, but I wound up getting hired and getting what I wanted. But, and that's another empowering thing. I let myself just do it. I'm like, what do you have to lose? Sometimes really, what do we have to lose? And I walked away with, what I wanted and with feeling empowered and really just getting what I feel that I'm worth. We really need to hold ourselves much higher in life. We and I'll speak for myself. I don't hold myself up high enough sometimes, with what I can offer, the people around me and the jobs and the family and all of that. So
I totally hear that. And it's interesting because we're talking about sitting with the shit, right? With our emotions. And then we're talking about actually taking the step in the uncomfortable realm, whatever it is. And it's like, I'm noticing that you have to sit with the shit first before you actually take the, like the aha moments or the epiphanies or the decisiveness, because that's what happened to me with the big one of, of leaving my marriage, was I was uncomfortable and unhappy for a really long time. And then when it came to a head, I really allowed myself, and I had some tear-jerking breakdowns, like just hysterical crying, until I think one of us was saying before, it's just like, and then you wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, I know exactly what I need to do. It's like this catharsis that then leads you to either the epiphany or the decision or what have you. And you're more anchored in the truth of it and in the resolve of it when you allow yourself to go through that storm. And it's kind of an amazing thing. It's again, we talk a lot about, I'm afraid of something, you're trepidatious, but then when you take that first step, you're just like, oh, this wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and sometimes when you sometimes that first step comes out of it's so uncomfortable that you have to do whatever it's going to take to get out of that uncomfortable space, whether it's, the relationship, the job, whatever. It's just so uncomfortable. You cannot take it another second.
yeah.
And the more, yeah, I was just going to say, and the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah. Like I know from my experience leaving my job, then let's say I get another job and the next job I'm unhappy, that's going to be a little bit more clear to me now, than before. So it is a good thing for sure. Yeah. Feel your feelings. Whew.
Feel your feelings.
I'm feeling pretty good right now.
That's true. You guys, I think this is a really good place to wrap it up. We hope you've enjoyed our conversations as much as we did. If you like our videos, please click like and subscribe to our channel, and be sure to let us know if you have a topic request or question by commenting below. Thank you so much for listening. If you love these conversations, please share it with a friend. We'll talk to you soon. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Love you.
Bye, everybody.